So welcome to another video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and today I'm here with Ben Hull. We're at WBC 2023. This is becoming something of an annual sit-down, which I'm very grateful for. And I appreciate you taking the time, because we're at a gaming convention, and we're all here to have some fun, but taking some time to kind of chat to folks about what we've got upcoming with some of your designs.
Yes.
I also know we've had a lot of recent releases, which is, I'm sure that's very exciting to kind of see that come to fruition.
It is, yeah. So we were showing prototype stuff for the Bulge expansion last year. It's good to see it in print. Came out, everything looks great. We got really good reviews, got nominated for a CSR award. We're super appreciative for all the support. And then from that, we got some really good ideas and feedback from the playtest team to incorporate that into the new kits coming along. So we're kind of evolving the system. And then we've onboarded the new development team. So we got Colin Parsons, Andrew Stead, and Jason Carr, and the GMT1 team really doing a great job of online presence and then just kind of having a standing play test team and effort. So really picked up a lot of steam in the last 2 years on the Fields of Fire front.
Yes, and so I know we've recently kind of announced on the P500 we got Volume 3, which is the Parachute Regiment. That's just called.
Yeah, the Parachute Regiment, the Paras for short. This would be the British Parachute Regiment.
Yes, I'm very excited for.
So we get we open the door of the Commonwealth, and so it's a great opportunity to see a different nationality, some of their unique features of how they. So yes, the U.S. and the British are very closely related in how we do infantry work, but there is a fair amount of difference. You want to capture some of that coolness, and then it's a whole other world out there as we open up the door, and then we can experiment with some new eras, some new terrain, some things for the players to deal with. Because ultimately, it's a decision-making game. Got to give them new and exciting decisions. So we get Arnhem in there. And we also have the whole Falklands. We did some new things with Falklands. Instead of just doing a single rifle company, you get the missions of several companies, so you can kind of play out the whole battle one company at a time. So that's kind of a little bit different. Sometimes we do that, and so the other things, you'll see that in the deluxe edition, where we might add a second mission saying, this is, here's another mission that shows you the rest of the story. We're doing that with an expansion for Tarawa. And then finally we get to Helmand, and so we're dealing with some more very much counterinsurgency, some of the challenges. For the Parachute Regiment in Sangan, tough road to hoe. They were fighting pretty dogged enemy, which I know real well because the Marines came in right after that. And in British terms, that was Alperic. And they had a number for each rotation they went through. The Parachute Regiment in Sangan, one of the most unpleasant places to be. Knew a lot of Marines who also fought there, so I tend to avoid a 25-year window because I still work for the government.
Yep.
So if I stay within that NDA area, there's a whole extra step I have to do to publish anything, which is odious.
Yes, I can only imagine. So with the stuff, so for example, in the Helmand, that's, I think, the most modern we get with Fields of Fire so far. What kind of new challenges or development did that kind of present? What do we get in that? Part of that is you've got an unknown enemy. So some of that is very much counterinsurgency related. So we've done a lot of experimentation with more modern stuff as we go forward. So there's better intercommunication at small unit level, so that you can communicate better, so you can do more with less over a larger area. There's much better night vision, so that becomes a more important thing, or a distinguishing factor is night vision capability. You have other cool toys like guided missiles and some other, they're a little more precision. And then we've done other experimentation, so things like that you're seeing in Ukraine. How do drones come in there? How would that work? Again, other people can then carry that on besides the area that I work in, and then avoid some classification issues that I have. So So I would like to see more of Afghanistan because we got some great stuff where like U.S. paratroopers and Rangers and stuff that we'd like to see. But there's plenty in World War II, Korea as well. So we do have kind of a generalized roadmap of where we want to take the series, but it isn't deterministic, right? You kind of get a feel for where's the market go. Because I've got several things. I got a lot of really good feedback from the World War I piece to it, and so some people are excited about that. I enjoy it because I've read a bunch of books about it in the last few years.
Yes.
And so it's like, all right, so you get a feel for where the market is and kind of adjust. So the next one after Volume 3, so we have the deluxe of Volume 1 deluxe version, so 3rd edition, which is a bunch of new stuff in there. So if you're still excited about it, there's the rule book is written to be easier to absorb. We've got a starter mission, kind of a startup piece to it. I spent a bunch of time with the team. I wrote like a 75-page, this is the philosophy and how to learn and teach, tome. That'll be woven in. We don't have a kind of a player's guide that comes out of that when it's all said and done. But we put a lot of quality of life, because the first one came out in 2008. So it's been played a few times since then.
Yes, it is.
So we've learned something. It's like, hey, it's a little bit easier if we do it this way or that way. And like, hey, I'm all about making it easier. So we're incorporating some of that into the counters. Some of that you saw in the bulge. If you have the bulge, we retrofitted a bunch of that stuff back. Especially the biggest piece is the mission booklet. This the bulge mission booklet, the format of the booklet, that how the missions are arranged, and the charts and tables. That seemed to get really positive feedback. So we're converting the Volume 1 campaigns into this style booklet. In so doing, we went through, there's more notes. I went through each one. We've added some introductory stuff. We're looking at updating the counters, like just some simple quality of life stuff. Easy to tell the North Koreans from the Vietnamese, and the Viet Cong from the North Vietnamese. There's just some simple things to do with the counter art to just make it easier. I think the last thing we looked at are the German update. We're going to update them to be groups instead of squads. They were originally organized into platoon. Actually a small company, but it isn't always that way, so we're going to differentiate the Fallschirmjäger from the regular German Army guys to get a little color in there. I like incorporating some distinctive bits we did in the bulge with some camouflage patterns. We'll do that with the Marines in Tarawa and Saipan and the follow-on kit.
So, let's talk about Tarawa and Saipan.
Yes.
What do we got going on there?
So Tarawa Saipan, I originally built that as an expansion to Volume 2, but as we got into the development piece, they said, hey, with one sheet of counters, we can make this an expansion to both Volume 1 and Volume 2. So that's the biggest piece, is for Volume 1 and or 2 owners, it'll be expansion to either one. So you'll be able to do it and have the Marines even if you don't have Volume 2. So, yay.
That's cool.
Also, you get 2 very famous battles from World War II. 2nd Marine Division is featured in there. They weren't the only guys there, but Tarawa was 2nd Marine Division. In a lot of the same officers, men that also fought Saipan. So I focused it on 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, primarily because at Tarawa, they were the ones that retained the most cohesion as a battalion. The 2nd Marines landed on the other side of the pier. They got all shot to pieces. The regimental commander was awarded the Medal of Honor because it was that bad. If you've ever seen the old movie Sands of Iwo Jima with John Wayne, there's a couple cameos from actual officers who fought at Tarawa.
Really?
During the Tarawa scene, Colonel Shoup, who was commanding 2nd Marines, Medal of Honor, he's in there. And then Colonel Crow, who was commanding 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines. And he's got a very distinctive handlebar mustache. And so he does a cameo in the movie, so you actually get to see the guy. He survives the war. He's badly injured at Tarawa, or at Saipan, sorry. He
he got shot through the chest and then blown up just to, in case
Yeah.
that didn't do the trick. He did survive and went on to appear in the movie, serving the Marines for several more years. Very famous character about him. He'd come up through the ranks as enlisted. So you get an interesting change. The structure of the Marines changed. They learned a ton from Tarawa. It was a tough battle. They learned a lot. So you'll see some substantial changes to the organization of the company and what tools. And so when you go and fight Tarawa in the same campaign, you have a whole other amphibious assault, but it's conducted much more differently. But the enemy is changed. So you're fighting the Japanese army. They have lots of artillery. It's a much larger scale battle than Tarawa. So
Exciting stuff. How far away on a timeline is an expansion like that?
So we're in the playtest phase now. We're in development playtest. I'm still kind of fleshing out all the missions. So it's not. We got to get the Volume 3 out the door. So we don't want to be competing against ourselves,
right.
P500. Although we're moving pretty far along. So the deluxe edition is most of that is pretty much done. We're doing some cleanup on the text piece for printing. That's going into art. The Volume 3 is pretty. They've been play testing that one for a while, so that one's pretty far along. So, long story short, probably end of next year at the earliest, or mid-year to hit P500, and then how fast it goes.
Right.
But it'll be ready for art probably early next year.
Awesome. So I know we just had Musket and Pike hit stores recently enough.
Yes.
Do we have anything else outside of Fields of Fire that we're working on that's coming?
Yeah, so the follow-on to Musket and Pike is the Bayonet and Musket series. So we were playtesting Oudenarde earlier in the week, but that one, Oudenarde is all the way in Volume 3. So we've got 3 volumes kind of mapped out for that series, 2 battles each. Keeps it a little bit smaller. Still a lot of counters because there are large battles in men, small space. So the first one actually I got the proofs back from Art, so it has been submitted for artwork. We're doing the final just approval proofs, and then that'll get printed. You might see that shipping, hopefully, depending on how things go with shipping, maybe by the end of the year in people's hands. That's Blenheim and Neerwinden. The first 2, we've targeted Ramilly and Steenkirk for the middle volume. Some big old bashing and crashing with large, nicely dressed people. So the dual pack went well. We got a lot of good feedback from that. So I would like to get these. We were talking about Musket and Pike.
Yes.
And we were looking at the dual pack, the dual pack take 2
yes.
For Volume 3 and 4. So we're looking at like late this year, early next year for P500. This one is we'll add another battle. So we got Wittenwehr, which is 1636. That would be technically part of Lily Banners. So we play tested that one a while back, and that would be a nice. If you're going to do a new one, you want something new in the box. So we did that with the first one. You got some new battles. You get a new battle with this one. I like the updated artwork. It's a mixed bag. I get it.
No, I like it too.
Oh, good, man. So that's what we have planned for Musket and Pike. And then somewhere out there, I've got some other designs playing around with. Looking at kind of the regimental battalion command and control area.
In what kind of a time period? That same.
It's easy to start in World War II because there's a lot of data points.
Sure.
And the pace of the combat is pretty straightforward. You can carry that forward into Korea, Vietnam. The staff structures, communication's a little better, but staff structures are pretty similar. So if you think about it, if you play a lot of games out there at the mid-level tactical, there'll be several ways to kind of cover command and control, right? So you either have like weighted turns, like tactical combat series or Napoleonic battle series. You write an order and then I wait.
Yes.
And then it magically pops. Well, the reality is people know what's going on. It's not a big waiting game for the soldiers that are waiting, but everybody else is busy working. So my thought process is show what everybody else is doing. It also shows you where in your decision, command, and control cycle you are, so you understand the dilemma that a commander has when something interrupts the cycle. So it's a track that takes you through the different steps of, I get a mission, I do a mission analysis, I come up with a plan, write orders, I have to disseminate the orders, and then the troops have to get the orders and do their own planning process. So so each one is a step on the track. Depending how complex the things that you choose to do are, will take more time to move down the track. And then you start to see, if the enemy does something and I'm 6 steps down an 8-step procedure, like, do I keep going or do I go back 4 steps? And so you'll start to see the actual processes that make up the OODA loop of command and control at the regimental, brigade, battalion level. And so you can move that forward in time fairly easily because those processes are essentially the same. We just have computers and to make it a little bit faster, but the reality is people still have to think about the problem, sketch it out, and then they start running out of gas like 72 hours into continuous operations. Everybody becomes a zombie.
Yeah.
And so, I think building that into that, and then a couple of tactical concepts to make it interesting. One is, we tend to look at games as like Fields of Fire. We want to change the paradigm.
Sure.
I have all my pieces. I want to move my pieces. Well, that sounds great, but it doesn't really work that way. Units don't move unless they're ordered to move. So that staff action process I just described will then push orders. So kind of like Musket Pike, you have to have an order, right?
Yes.
Well, this will just be the modern version of that. You'll have orders to go and do something. And or defend yourself. And so it is a little bit more rigid in some respects, but that's actually how you control large troops in action. And then the last piece of that is understanding you don't really know exactly where the enemy is, so that's worked into how the combat works. Is you have to generate a better enemy location. Like in a general, I'm looking at about 500-yard hexes, 500 meters for the metric folks, close enough. So in that hex, if you look at what the physical space a rifle company actually occupies of a hex, is maybe 18%. So which 18% of that hex is physically occupied is incredibly important. And then when I drop artillery in there, it generally hits a battery. It's only going to do each gun is a 50 by 50 box. So you're dropping a little impact area on a little thing inside a big box. So a whole lot of combat is finding out which 18% is the part. So it is a target refinement aspect. So I know the enemy's over there, but then there's a process you have to go through combat action to come up with the fine location, and then if I can hit that location, I will blast you right out of it eventually. And same goes for the other guy. They know exactly where you are, they'll blow you out of it.
So a concept like that sounds like it would fit well in a solitaire game. Is this kind of looking at that from a solo point or 2-player?
So it can go 2-player, because the challenge with the 2-player is if you can interrupt the other guy's OODA loop, right? So I could build it either way, and you can bot it out depending on the general tactical situation. If it's a more dynamic warfare situation, 2-player lends itself to that. If it's like in a Normandy campaign where you're on the offense for weeks at a time and you're grinding away at a deliberate defense, a solitaire approach would work for that. And so I think providing good solid options, a lot of what GMT is kind of emphasizing with a lot of games, there's a lot of solitaire bits to it. So a little bit different from a game like Fields of Fire that is exclusively solitaire. Yes. I think there is a room to make this one work both, right? But a lot of that's driven by the situation. Give stuff in the box for the player to do solitaire.
Solo scenarios and 2-player ones.
Yeah, and then because I think there is a good challenge to how that work, how the target location and the planning cycles work, because when I'm testing it out, you start to see, when you compare to the historical norms, it's like we actually call this in modern military, it's called the battle rhythm, and you'll start seeing why the battle rhythm is the way it is. It takes so much time to get a mission, generate orders, disseminate, get the word out, make sure the people are at the right place with the right gear. And so you're like, oh, okay, that's why you had attacked maybe once a day, maybe twice a day. The second one is really, it's got to be an easy one because I put all my eggs into one basket to plan and execute. What happens? There's a counterattack. You start seeing a fairly predictable piece to it, and then where you can really, if you can buy the time to plan something special, you can maybe do something, do a breakthrough, but it's a gamble. And so the idea hopefully is to give an insight into what's actually going on. So maybe we read a book about the history, and they'll tell about these people or their experiences, and then I'm spent a lot of time trying to look at, well, why did it happen the way it happened, and how did this combat actually work? Who was doing what? It's easy to read an individual account. It's chaos. Then you read somebody else's account, and it's like, well, we were trying to get the word, but the word didn't get out. So to the soldiers, it seemed like chaos, but there's like an army of people trying to make order out of chaos. That's a lot of what staff officers do. It's a thankless job, but it requires
I can only imagine
countless people. In the old days, typing out orders, or now it's on a laptop working. I spent plenty of time overseas on a hardened laptop in a tent, typing out orders and all the stuff that goes with that. How to issue a proper order. So there's a lot of, if you think about it, if I'm going to take Marines or sailors onto a combat mission, I've got to have a plan. The plan has to be communicated. I have to order tell the Marines what their mission is, all the inspections, make sure that they get their weapons and equipment. And, I have to have people watching, so I have to just push information up. So if somebody's injured, they already have a list. If a truck gets blown to bits, I have to have a manifest to know who was in it, because whose mom gets an awful letter, because you don't want to send the wrong letter.
No, that's
so there's a lot of detail that goes in, and that's why it takes time. That's why so many of the soldiers are like, "Whoa, war is super boring," because I'm waiting for all these people in the office and the company clerk to make sure all that stuff is done. So in Iraq, I planned and executed just over 100 combat missions. And you have to go through that process for every one of them, exactly who's going, what we call the ZAP list, all the people, information, so that if any of them is injured, they can I don't have to read out who it is. I can give them the code number. They go, oh, I know their blood type, I know everything already. So when the medevac comes in, now were we as good in World War II or Korea, they did much of the same stuff. It just was much more manual.
Right.
And so it had just required more people on typewriters, but they kept pretty good records. Yeah. So I got actually in my box. I have the typewritten records from the Way City campaign. So they did PDFs at the National Archives, and I printed it out. So I've got the typewritten records from February 1968, where they typed out everything that happened every hour of every day, the whole log, every casualty, every mission, all that stuff, which helps when you're building the campaign, because you're like, wow, this is exactly what their operations office recorded. Some of that is lost. You don't get 100% everything, but it's the best record you're going to get between interviews and the official record. That's really what you're going to get.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you sitting down, spending some time with us, and kind of going through some of the things that we've got going. Once again, a pleasure. And I'm very excited for some of the stuff that's on the horizon as well. and look forward to what we have coming, what you've told us. So.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, hopefully next year, WBC 24,
Alas.
we'll have the whole nother kid.
I won't be here, so I'm devastated about
No.
that. I got a family reunion,
Oh,
so
well, you know,
I'm gonna
family's
miss out on
important.
that one.
Family's
Yeah.
important. Don't skip out on family.
But thanks once again for
thank
sitting
you.
down, and thank you very much for tuning in. I'm
Thank you.
Alexander from theplayers8.com.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure. Thank you.